Everyone, what's up and welcome back with some more poker content here. Today we will discuss a topic which is being asked about all the time, and that is whether or not you should play Zoom poker tables or regular poker tables as an online cash game player. Now, to shine some more light on it, I decided to make a short video about it, compare the differences between both, so all of you can make a more informed decision here. But before jumping into the main criteria here, let's quickly assess what are the differences actually between Zoom and regular tables, for those of you who don't know what Zoom poker is all about. And that is that in standard ring games, players are forced to compete against the same opponents and wait for the hand to be finished before receiving a new one. We all know this, of course, from playing regular tables. In Zoom poker, however, you join a large pool of players spread out across multiple tables. Now, the second you fold your hand, you are instantly moved to a new one with new opponents and, more importantly, a new hand. So whenever you don't like your hand in Zoom poker, you can just fold it and get dealt right away a new hand at a different table. So this, of course, creates a different dynamic, and more importantly, it's much faster. You can play more hands. So this is the key difference here. But why you should play Zoom over regular tables, or why you should play regular tables over Zoom tables. Let's compare both of them and look at a few different criteria when it comes to selecting what games are you actually playing. Now, the number one reason why players decide to play Zoom tables over regular tables is probably the fact that it's so convenient. Zoom poker, you can just sit and play instantly. On, for example, PokerStars, Zoom tables and Zoom games are running all the time. You can just log in, jump into the games, and there's no need to think about anything else than just playing. And this is probably the number one reason why players choose Zoom games. It's so convenient. Now, of course, Zoom games these days, they are also offered on a couple of more sites. For example, on Party Poker, you have Fast Forward. On Natural 8, for example, you have Rush and Cash. In the past, the first one that's being introduced on Full Tilt Poker actually was called Rush Poker, and this was introduced already back in 2010. So that's already 10 years old, and still it's a huge success, of course, and these days Zoom is probably the biggest format of it. So when it comes to convenience, of course, sit and play instantly is extremely important here when it comes to playing Zoom. And also that it almost always runs, of course, as mentioned, which is a big deal for many players. It's also a great way to learn the game, of course, because you don't have to think about anything else. All these side components that come into play when you want to play poker, they are not there. You can just open the tables because the games are almost always running. You can just focus on playing poker. You can just focus on your hand. If you don't like your hand, you move on to the next one. And you can just step by step learn the game very quickly because you can get dealt so many hands. When it comes to regular tables, this can be a real hustle. You know the format here and you know the thrill that when you open up the lobbies online, sometimes there's only just one table, two tables running. You can't play that many tables at the same time. You might have to look at other sites at the same time. Tables will break. Sometimes you sit heads up or three-handed. Sometimes it's six-handed. It's a much different experience, basically, and you have to be very active about it, and you have to think strategically about how to handle this situation the best. There's also a limited amount of tables that will often run, as mentioned. Like on many sites, there aren't like 5, 6, 7 regular tables running at the same time. You either have to play different limits or you have to play different sides at the same time if you want, for example, to play 6 regular tables at the same time. And this is very different, of course, when comparing this to Zoom or Fast Forward, where whenever the pool is filled with like 20, 30, 40 people at least, then you can just play like 4 entries if you want, and you can play a lot of tables at the same time here. Volume and win rate is also very important, and there's quite a difference here. Of course, when we think about Zoom poker here, you can play a lot of hands sitting on one table, on average, let's say around 200, maybe 250 hands per hour. And the average win rate on Zoom formats or other similar fast forward formats is a little bit lower if you would compare them to regular tables. Later more on why this would be the case. If we think about regular tables here, you can play, of course, less hands because it's a much slower format here. So on average, around 70 to maybe 90 hands per hour is pretty realistic here. And the win rate here on average is a little bit higher if you would compare it to Zoom, for example. Now let's look a little bit more into that win rate, or at least like why could this win rate be different if you compare these two formats. And that is, of course, it had all to do with the opponents at the table. First of all, at Zoom Poker, there are on average more regular tables, and that is because of a couple of reasons. First of all, I already mentioned it is very convenient, and a lot of regulars, they like that way of thinking. They like just to open the lobby and to be able to play whenever they want to play, basically. Secondly, for a lot of regulars, Zoom formats or fast forward formats, it's a way to make a lot of volume, to put in a lot of hours because the games are already almost always running. You can just play a lot of hands, and that is what a lot of regulars like to do. They not only win because of their win rate, but they also win because of, for example, rakeback deals. And if you play a high volume, if you play a lot of hands, that can be very beneficial for regulars. Secondly, at Zoom for Poker, there are a little bit tighter dynamics, especially pre-flop, because if you don't like your hand, you can just move on to the next one. And that makes people less willing to more often go very wide and do crazy things pre-flop because they know, well, I can just fold and then have a good chance to have a better hand right away in the next table. Population tendencies can be very useful at Zoom because there's on average like a different dynamic, like people play more of a similar style, at least that's possible. And therefore population tendencies can be extremely useful here because a lot of players have the same style, especially regulars or also some recreational players, because the pre-flop tendencies, at least, they are a little bit tighter and different when we compare them to the regular formats. If you think about regular formats, there are more recreational players on average. And one of the reasons here could be that recreational players, they open a lobby and they just want to play poker. And what they know about playing poker is you just normally do that on like a normal poker player. Some people, regular recreational players, they don't even know about Zoom formats or fast forward formats. They just open the lobby and they see regular tables running, and that is what they will sit at. Another thing is here that you see that there are a little bit looser dynamics when it comes to regular tables, especially pre-flop. Because it's a slower format, you get dealt less hands. People are more inclined, at least recreational players, they are more inclined to become wider and looser because they want to get some action. They want to play some hands, and they cannot just fold and then get moved to a next hand. They are playing differently, for sure. I've experienced it myself a lot. Like, I've been playing a lot of Zoom in the past. I've been playing a lot of regular poker, and it's a way different dynamic. Like regular tables, people have extremely high VPIPs. They are extremely loose, sometimes loose passive, sometimes loose aggressive. They just play much more hands pre-flop, and that creates a very, very different dynamic. There are more multi-way pots on regular tables when you compare it to Zoom formats, and it's just a different game here, for sure. Also, there are a lot of different player profiles when it comes to regular tables. You have the regulars, of course, then you have the loose passive recreational players, then you have the loose aggressive players, you have the maniacs, you have like complete fish that's sitting there who's playing 100% VPIP, which is not happening too often on like the Zoom tables. It's just a more wide variety of players. You can almost compare it to like live poker. There are just all kinds of opponents joining the table, and it's a much different experience there to play, for sure. And lastly here, one of the big advantages, of course, about playing regular tables is that you have the option to occasionally sit with a fish at the table or with someone who is completely on tilt and who's just at your table the entire time. He's not getting moved to another table. You will not get moved to another table unless one of you stands up. But if not, you will just have the advantage of just sitting with this maniac at a table for like hands in a row, maybe hours in a row even. And that's, of course, huge if you play online poker. Table selection, another very important topic when it comes to deciding what you want to play here. When it comes to Zoom, there's no option to play or to do anything about table selection. Yes, you can see how many players are in the player pool, but that's really it. On many sites, you can't see who they are. You can't see how many entries they've had. You just have to join and then see yourself here, basically. Zoom format, in a way, it's a very fair game. You join a pool and you get dealt a hand randomly, and then you get a seat randomly, and whenever you fold, you get moved to another hand instantly, and everyone is dealt equal amounts of big blinds all the time, equal amounts of positions, and it's very fair in the sense that there's no option to take a specific seat at the table, to use seat scripts. It's very fair in that sense, and everyone has the same opportunities in that format, basically. There's no seat scripting possible. I already said it. When it comes to regular tables, of course, some people use software which allows them to have a quick seat whenever a table starts, and that gains them an advantage, of course, because they will always have a seat at the table. At Fast Forward or Zoom, that's not possible. You just have to join the pool and then go from there, basically. Look at regular tables here. One of the benefits here could be that you can look at the tables from the poker lobby when you're in the poker lobby online, and you can see who's sitting at the table. For example, PokerStars, this is still possible. You can see the names at the table. You can see how many players are sitting at the table. On some sites, this is not possible. For example, Party Poker or Run at Once, for example, there's no seating names. You cannot see who is actually at the table sitting, but you can still see how many players are sitting at a certain table. And that can be of an advantage, of course, to know what's happening there and how many players and who's there. Also, seat selection can be possible, of course. If there's a table running with like 3 players, for example, there are still 3 seats left. And it's up to you which seat you take. And you can decide like at what spot of the table you take your seat. And that can be, of course, a huge benefit. When it comes to the game flow, lastly, before wrapping it up for today here, you can see that Zoom, there's a dynamic that's very fast, quick, it's easy, it's convenient, it's a really nice way to just play poker in a sense. It's just a different experience for sure. You definitely have to try it out if you've never done it. And if you have played Zoom or Fast Forward, you exactly know what I mean and why the game flow is so quick and so nice here. The fast fold function, it's a great tool of Fast Forward and Zoom, of course, because it allows you to quickly move to the next hand without having to wait before the hand is finished. And that, again, creates this quick and dynamic game flow. Regular tables, they are much slower. You have to wait until the hand to be finished. And the dynamic there is much, it's different. It's totally different there. It's more personal, regular tables, so you build reads differently. Like imagine when you're sitting at a live poker table also, after a couple of hours, you have certain reads on opponents, which aren't possible to have on Zoom tables, at least in a similar fashion there, because you haven't sit with the same people at the same table for hours, for example. So it's a more one-on-one engagement, a more one-on-one game there, basically. And you can really get inside someone's head here. You can see someone start playing differently, become emotionally attached to the game. You can build reads and you can really get inside the head of someone. And that is, of course, one of the things that can make poker such a beautiful game, of course. It's not all about the cards, but it's also about the one-on-one interaction with other players. And that is definitely more happening within regular tables than within Zoom tables, at least. That's what I would say here. Okay, so all in all, we've now looked at different things you want to consider, the comparisons here, like what are the advantages of Zoom, what is the advantage of regular tables, and the disadvantages here, and where should you sit down? I mean, it all depends on your own preference, like what is your situation, what is your point of view when it comes to playing poker, what do you enjoy more, and definitely like check it out both. Like lately, over the past few months, I've been exclusively playing regular tables. And that is because some of the advantages there, in my opinion at least, outweigh the advantages of playing Zoom poker. But but it's a personal preference. I also played Zoom a lot in the past, and I thought that back then that was the holy grail sort of. And it's just a different experience, and I recommend all of you, if you haven't tried out both, and if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. You can play Zoom on PokerStars, you can play Fast Forward on Party Poker, you can play Rush and Cash on Natural 8. There are a lot of different formats these days where you can use this kind of poker format, and there are probably more sites that I'm not even aware of. And then also try out regular tables and see what does it does to you. Where are you playing better? What do you experience? What do you enjoy more? Where are your results better? And basically go from there. So I'm very interested to ask all of you, like, what are you playing currently and why is that the case? Please let me know below in the comment section so we can start a discussion there if you're interested in that. And let me know, like, what is your preference and why, of course. Okay, that's gonna be it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you out so you can make a more informed decision and know a little bit more about the differences here. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel, of course, if you haven't done already, and if you enjoy this type of content, of course. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Take care, have a nice day, and I'll see you soon here with another episode.